Here are the Ernest movies ranked. So there's 10 movies. Coming in at number 10, the worst movie, and a movie that is just really bad. That is Ernest Goes to Africa. And honestly, this whole franchise is pretty bad. Most of the movies are bad. So Ernest Goes to Africa. I like the truck scene. That was kind of action-packed, but other than that, Ernest, I think, is actually too dumb in the movie. It feels like this movie kind of maybe retcons all the other movies, because it seems like they really don't connect. The villain doesn't find out that Ernest is not Agent 32, and the villain just isn't really memorable. I really can't tell you what his name was. So Ernest Goes to Africa is the worst Ernest movie. It's not good at all. So moving on is Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam. Jim Varney does good as Dr. Von Schnick and all the other characters, and the movie is creative. But other than that, I don't find it funny. It feels pretty cheap. It looks older than what it is. It's a dark movie where, like, Ernest, all the other movies are not dark. This should arguably be my last Ernest movie, since it really isn't even an Ernest movie. And the device, I think, kind of changes what it really does. So it's not really that good at all. Moving on is Ernest Goes to School. So Ernest going to school is a cool concept, but in execution, well, it's not really good. It is cheap. His friends never really find out that Ernest was using this device to make him smart, but it acts out like they have, but we just didn't see that scene. And the teacher eats a fly like a frog. Like, I thought this movie was bound in realism, but this one apparently isn't. So, I mean, I know we're talking about a device that can make you smart, but, like, that was borderline supernatural with the teacher. The device could be written off as, like, science fiction. So, Ernest Goes to School, pretty bad. Next up is, that'd be number 7, is Slam Dunk Ernest. So, the shoes were a pretty cool concept of making Ernest a good basketball player. The drama that the shoes brought in, like someone is jealous of Ernest, that was pretty cool. And Ernest actually being selfish and then learns to actually pass the ball to other people and let other people play was an interesting take on his character. The mixed aspect was Ernest's job. He's a janitor, so, like, it doesn't really affect the movie that much, but it's fine. Like, it really wasn't great. There was a little stuff that kept it engaging enough in the movie, but, like, it kind of feels like it just kind of went out the window. But then, other than that, the movie is pretty cheap, and since we're always following new characters, it's hard to invest into these basketball players. So overall, I kind of think Slam Dunk Ernest has potential, but I don't think it really had the budget to do a whole lot. So Slam Dunk Ernest, I think, is ultimately still pretty bad. Next up is Ernest in the Army. This one, I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I don't think I would really watch it again. I do like the total opposite of, like, Ernest being in the army because he's such an idiot. So that has some potential for some funny comedy. And the desert chase in the third act was pretty cool, where Ernest is using a scooper to get the bombs off the path. That was pretty cool. Other than that, it feels kind of cheap. It really wasn't that funny. And the villain's not memorable. I guess this is more negative than positive. So I guess Ernest in the Army is still a just a bad movie. So, Ernest in the Army has some redeemable qualities, but I think it's still bad. Number 5 is Ernest Rides Again. So this one's actually kind of decent. The Ernest song in the beginning was fun. The movie overall is just kind of fun. It's not overly great, but it's fine. And the villain, Glenn Cliff, was actually a pretty good villain. Not the best, but certainly better than almost any other villain below this movie. So he was intimidating enough. Other than that, again, this movie just really isn't as interesting as the movies above it. And then also Dr. Mellon going from hating Ernest, and then when his wife was complaining about her, he's like, hey, but he's my friend. So that felt weird. That he goes from hating him to just automatically really liking Ernest when they already had a fight with each other. So that was weird. But Ernest Rides Again, I think is fine. So if I'm in the Ernest movie, I could probably watch this one. Moving on, number 4 is Ernest Saves Christmas. The Santa is actually really cool. He's really nice. The movie is overall funny. The story is pretty good. Ernest has to get the toy sack back to Santa, and Santa has to get Joe to become the new Santa. It's entertaining enough. The negatives, Ernest's taxi job doesn't really get utilized that well in the movie. I think it handles a little too many things. You probably could cut some stuff out. And I don't think the villain was really that interesting, not really that integral to the film. But other than that, Ernest Saves Christmas is pretty good. Number 3 is Ernest Goes to Jail. The Doing Time song is cool. Ernest's bank job is cool. Mr. Nash is one of the best villains, and the movie is really funny. Other than that, I don't think it utilized some of the things that Chuck and Bobby brought up in the bank. They don't utilize, like, the plastic or the electric cage as much. Other than that, I do really like it. Number 2 is Ernest Scared Stupid. So this movie is funny. This is probably one of my favorite comedies of all time. The trolls are actually really scary. It does have a good balance of being scary and dark, but then also being funny. And the final act is really funny, where you have trolls dying by milk. Like, that is just silly enough. Like, in a real horror movie, you'd probably actually have to shoot the troll with a real gun or something. So I think trolls being killed by milk is just silly enough. So I actually really like it. So, the negatives with it, Ernest's job, trash job, that's not really integral to the film too much. And then Old Lady Hackmore tells Ernest exactly how to bring Trantor back. If she never did that, Trantor never would have came back. So that was really stupid. But other than that, Ernest Scared Stupid is great. But easily coming in at number 1 is Ernest Goes to Camp. One of my favorite movies of all time. The only thing I don't like about it is when Nurse St. Cloud squeezes some liquid out of the needle, and it's like, okay, you just wasted that. But other than that, Ernest as a character is great. The movie is hilarious. Sherman Crater as the villain is really good. He's trying to stop the camp from existing to look for some mineral. The camp setting is great. So I love just about everything about this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So Ernest Goes to Camp is easily my number 1 favorite Ernest movie. Thanks for watching.